Hello and welcome into this week's edition of the ARCA Menards Series Rewind Show. I'm Garth Allen. This is Racing News Now, and today we're talking about race 18 of 20 in the 2021 ARCA Menards Series schedule. The Bush's Beans Best 200 at the Bristol Motor Speedway, 200 laps around the last great Coliseum in Bristol, Tennessee, the half-mile bull ring that always produces good racing, or in tonight's case, produced interesting racing. We'll put it that way. Also, very quickly, if you are new here, we're currently in our hashtag Race to 1K. The quicker we get to 1,000 subscribers, the quicker YouTube will let us do mobile live streams at the track, which will greatly improve both the quality and quantity of coverage we're able to give you at the track. We should be at Salem and Kansas to wrap up this season, and then should be at most of the races in 2022, if not all of them, for the ARCA Menards series. So, the quicker we hit 1,000 subscribers, the quicker you get more and better coverage from these ARCA races. So, if that's something you're interested in, go down below, hit that subscribe button for me. There were some issues with tonight's race. There were good things about tonight's race, but there was a lot of bad too that we're gonna get into here. Now, I want to start off by saying that I love the ARCA Menards series at Bristol. I think this was fantastic. And I think it was even better that we had 31 cars in this race. That is the biggest car count we have had since Daytona. That is fantastic. We need more car counts like this. I really hope that we get more car counts like this into the future, into 2022. I don't see us getting car counts like that at Salem and Kansas to finish out the year, but I hope we get more car counts like that into 2022, especially as we get more Gen 5 and Gen 6 chassis into teams' hands going into next year. Now, that being said, we had a lot of issues with lapped cars and slow cars tonight. They were a bit of a nuisance. We had lots of problems with slow cars tonight. Now, from what I've heard in the drivers' meeting today, ARCA officials told the drivers to use their heads tonight. And specifically, that was, I believe, if you're being lapped, was my understanding, is that was the context here, was they were told to use their heads when being lapped. That didn't really happen tonight. We had a lot of issues, and this isn't on ARCA. ARCA, the series, is not to blame for this. There's nothing else that they could have done about this besides telling the drivers use their heads when being lapped. The drivers chose not to. Now, this wasn't every slow car out there. I saw cars specifically like Brad Smith that whenever he was being lapped would get out of the way, was not an issue. There were other drivers tonight that didn't quite do the same thing. You had cars that were 2 and 3 wide with the leaders coming up on them. You had packs of 6 or 7 slower cars racing each other as the leaders came up on them. Now, that's fine if you're at, like, the cup level, where if you're being lapped for 20th, you've got speed that's fairly comparable to the leader, where you're only a couple mile an hour off of what they're doing per lap. In this case, we're talking about cars that were 10, maybe 15 mile an hour slower than what the leader was doing. You're not going to be able to hold on to the lead lap or whatever lap you were on, so get out of the way. There's no reason to be going 2 and 3 wide with the leaders right behind you and then wrecking in front of the leaders because you're having your own little race that means, in the grand scheme of things, nothing to anyone except for you. And that, I get that they're having their own little race. And I'm not saying that lapped cars and slower cars shouldn't race. But there is a time and a place to do that, and it's not with the leader bearing down on you 10 mile an hour faster than you. We literally had groups of 6 or 7 slower cars going 2 to 3 wide, and it was like a maze trying to navigate through if you were a lead lap car. That's not how this is supposed to work. We had passes being made because people would get blocked in by a car that was going 10 miles an hour slower than them. That is not how this is supposed to work. The lapped cars get out of the way. Once the faster cars are by, then you continue your racing. You don't continue your racing and act as if the faster cars are not there. We had wrecks tonight that happened because the slower cars were in their own little world and not paying any attention to the fact that faster cars were around them. That's not how this is supposed to work. And again, that's not every slower car in this race. Some of them were doing their job and were doing it correctly. Others, not so much. They were in their own little world. It was as if we were out on the interstate and you've got that one driver that decides they're going to drive the speed limit in the left lane. No. Get over into the right lane so the people driving a reasonable speed can get around you. Again, I'm not saying that slower cars shouldn't race each other. There's a time and a place, and that time and a place is not when the leader is bearing down on you 10 miles an hour faster than you, and then causing a wreck right in front of the leader. That happened multiple times tonight, where slower cars would wreck each other because they were racing each other 2 car lengths in front of the leader, and the leader would have to dip and dodge around it for no reason. That's not how this is supposed to work. So let's look at your caution report for the night. There was a lot of them. 9 caution flags in total. Again, don't have the lap count because haven't gotten anything official yet. I've gotten to the point where I'm just taking notes and I'm going back through the race broadcast to figure out this stuff because it's just taking way too long to get the official info and such. So caution report for the night, 9 of them total. Brakes at 76 and 126. The 01 car spun in turn 4 on lap 3. We had a major accident lap 29 in turn 2. The 97 gets spun by the 28. The 97 just kind of turns down into the corner, and it almost looked like he didn't even know the 28 of Kyle Sieg was there. I'm not sure what the deal with that was, whether his spotter just didn't tell him he was there or what happened, but he ends up coming back up the track, spinning right into the path of Sam Mayer. Sam Mayer had already had a bad day to this point as it was. Blew a tire in practice, had to go to a backup car, started from the back, was working his way to the front, was actually just about to get lapped at this point. He was actually racing these cars for position, trying to battle his way through the field, and then gets caught up in this wreck. Was actually only like a car length or 2 ahead of the leader at this point. But unfortunately, Sam Mayer, your defending winner of this race, did not get to compete to the end of the race to try and defend his Bristol win from last year. All because we have like a gaggle of 7 or 8 lap cars trying to race each other in front of the faster cars. Lap 62, the 10 car spins in turn 2. At lap 76, we did have a break, but I want to talk about this because we should have had a caution 2 or 3 laps before this, and we didn't. And this, I will put on ARCA, because the 12 car of DL Wilson was extremely slow on the track. I don't know what kind of issue that he actually had at this point. I don't know if he had blown an engine, broken something, what exactly had happened, but he was going considerably slow at this point. I'm talking maybe less than 100 miles an hour. There was a major speed difference as you were watching lead lap cars fly around him on the backstretch. He was a hazard. That's what a caution is for. He is a hazard running around the outside of the backstretch, around the wall, at nowhere close to race speed. Was there a caution thrown for this? No. Should there have been a caution thrown for this? Yes, I think there should have been. He was a major issue, yet ARCA's just like, oh, well, we've got 2 laps to the break, so we'll let this play out, and if there's a wreck, there's a wreck. Because there was almost a wreck. I watched multiple lead lap cars almost run into him because they didn't realize he was going so slow and they didn't realize he was there. There should have been a caution for DL Wilson 2 or 3 laps before this break, and there wasn't. That is on ARCA. Slow cars not getting out of the way is not on ARCA. That, though, that's on ARCA. Lap 97, the 87 of Chuck Buchanan spins in turn 4 off the front bumper of Thad Moffitt. Again, lapped cars not getting out of the way. And again, you could say Thad Moffitt should have had more patience, but he's a lead lap car going much faster than the lap cars in front of him that are battling too wide. Get out of the way of the fast cars, then continue your battle. After the second break, we still had 3 more cautions. Andy Jankowiak hard into the inside wall on lap 137, disappointing for him as he was having a really good night. I believe he was 9th at the time. Lap 151, Michigan spills over into Bristol. Drew Dollar gets his retaliation and spins Thad Moffitt off of turn 2. Now, you can say what you will, this was intentional. You might have been able to make an argument that it wasn't intentional until the 15 jerked to the right just before he made contact with the 46 off of turn 2. That was clearly him jerking the wheel to the right to make sure he made contact with the 46. 100%, yes, was intentional. Fortunately for Thad Moffitt, didn't make any contact with anything, came down and changed the flat left front tire that he had at this point and continued. But as you see, he was also the next caution at lap 160. There must have been more issues beyond that because he got into the wall after this and just went behind the wall and parked it. Lap leaders on the night. Ty Gibbs led all but 3 laps in this race. Thad Moffitt did lead 3 laps after he stayed out under the first break. But, as we know, Thad Moffitt didn't make it to the end of the race. So clearly, Ty Gibbs won this race. 100% deserved it. Fastest car all night. And you could tell he got caught up in some lap traffic. Again, lap cars being in the way with about 10 to go. And he was being very patient with them. A little more patient than I think I might have been with them. And was very patient until Sammy Smith got to his back bumper with about 8 laps to go. Then he got a little more impatient, moved Greg Van Alst out of the way, and set sail. There for a while, he'd had pretty comparable lap times with Sammy Smith, Taylor Gray, and some of these other guys, but he drove away from Sammy Smith after he moved the 35 out of the way. So it was very clear that he had more in the bank than what he had been showing, and I think he was really saving a lot all night, and really I don't know that anybody could have really done anything with Ty Gibbs had they tried near the end of the race. Because Sammy Smith got there, and as soon as he did, Ty kicked on the afterburners, and he was gone. So let's look at your results. Ty Gibbs, of course, 10th win of the season, getting very close to that modern era win record from Tim Steele at 12 wins. He has to win the last 2 races to tie that record this season. He's on track to do it, very well could. Dominated Salem the last time we were there in 2019, and then led every lap at Kansas earlier this season, so very well could do it. But we still got to run those races to find out if he will. Sammy Smith came home in second to clinch the ARCA Menards Series East Championship for 2021. Congratulations to Sammy Smith. Great season for him in the East, 3 wins. And capping it off with a great run tonight in second. Taylor Gray came home in third. Good run for him after winning in Portland on Saturday for the West race. Nick Sanchez, great night for him as well. And then Corey Heim rounded out the top 5. Again, not a great night for Corey Heim as he slips a little bit more in the point standings now. Rest of your top 10, Raja Caruth had a very fast car early on. Got as high as, I believe, third before the first break. And then I don't know what the adjustment was they did on the first break, but he fell like a rock between the first and the second break. Must have fixed it under the second break because he finally came back and only was able to get back to 6th. I think he had a better car than that, and unfortunately that portion between the breaks really messed him up. Jesse Love 7th, Drew Dollar 8th, Parker Chase 9th, and Connor Jones rounds out the top 10. 11th through 20th. Daniel Dye, as high as 3rd, was very fast early on. Then he dropped like a rock late in the race and unfortunately ended up in the 12th position. Not really sure what happened there, but the handle really did seem to go away on that 21 car late in the race. Greg Van Alst, in his return, came home in the 15th position. Mason Mingus, also returning, came home in the 17th position. Joey East, not a great night for him. He was 19th. 21st through 30th, Jason Kitzmiller landed in 22nd after having that incident early on with Sam Mayer. Thad Moffitt, after his run-in with Drew Dollar, parked it and came home in the 25th position. Andy Jankowiak, after his wreck, was 26th. Sam Mayer parked it very early after that incident early in the race, came home in 29th, and then Mason Diaz came home in 31st after only completing 2 laps in this race. So that is your results following the Bush's Beans 200. Probably not going to get a Ty Gibbs interview this week because I have a feeling we're going to talk to him at least once in the final 2 races this season, as we will be at Salem and Kansas. So keep an eye out for that. We will be talking to Sammy Smith this week, though. Not sure when yet, but we are going to talk to him to wrap up his season, talk about the championship, and all of that. So we're just trying to get the logistics of that figured out. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure you're subscribed and your notifications are turned on so you know when that happens. But of course, Sammy Smith does win the East Series Championship. Now let's look at the point standings for the main ARCA Menards series. Now with 2 races remaining, Ty Gibbs extends that lead to 26 points now over Corey Heim. It's going to take a miracle for Corey Heim, I think, at this point. It's going to take some bad luck, definitely, out of Ty Gibbs at Salem and or Kansas. Maybe both of them for Corey to really realistically get back into this at this point. It has been a struggle for Corey Heim of late, and unfortunately that has taken him a bit out of the championship picture. Mathematically, he's not out of it just yet, but I think with another not so great run at Salem, he could be mathematically out of it headed into Kansas. We will see what happens here in a couple weeks, October 2nd. But that's your point standings following the Bush's 200 of Bristol, and I believe that'll do it for us tonight. Might see another rewind show this weekend. Can't promise it, but you may see a truck or an Xfinity rewind this weekend, maybe even a Cup rewind. I am mulling it around in my head. I'm not promising it, but you may see another Bristol rewind this weekend from one of these other 3 races. So keep an eye out for that. May not be the last video of the weekend. Again, should have Sammy Smith on here within the next few days to talk about his championship, so keep an eye out for that. iRacing Tuesday should be back on Tuesday. My internet was out all evening on Tuesday, which is why we didn't do it this week. Went out at like 5 o'clock, didn't come back till after midnight. I do apologize for that, but nothing I could really do about that. So iRacing Tuesday should come back this week on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So come out, hang out for that. I don't know if we'll have a driver or not, but definitely come out, hang out with us. Should be a fun time either way. But I believe that'll do it for us. So thank you as always to our Patreon supporter, Regional Manager William Holmes. Thank you as always for your support. It is greatly appreciated. If you would like to be a patron of RNN, the link is down below in the description. Patreon.com/RacingNewsNow. Not required by any means, but it is definitely appreciated when you want to support RNN in that way. But I think that's going to do it for this one. So at that, this has been the ARCA Menards Series Rewind Show. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.